Guys, gals, non-binary pals, welcome back to Figurama by enemyzero. I am enemyzero, obviously. And it is Halloween time, so I wanted to do something special. Something that I've never done before. Talk about, some horror movies that I love. I'm a big horror movie fan. And, I have a lot of NECA horror figures that I have not opened up yet. And to open them up on camera and just talk about the figure probably wouldn't take that long. So I wanted to try a new format. So please, the big thing you can do is please let me know in the comments below whether you like this format or not. If you want me to do more, leading up to Halloween, there's definitely a couple more that I want to do before Halloween hits. But these are going to be my, Halloween specials for the channel. So what I'm going to do is do a quick, movie review. Talk about the movie a little bit because I definitely am a movie buff too, and I have no other channel to talk about horror movies. I do love horror movies quite a lot. But this would give me an opportunity to talk about them, to share them with people, and to share the figure too and compare the two, which is sort of what I do on my channel. And that's what people tend to like on the channel so far. And what better place to start the tradition than one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I saw it way too young, which I'll talk about in a minute. But it is Hellraiser. And so today we're going to be looking at Ultimate Pinhead by NECA from Hellraiser. So put the kids to bed and let's talk some horror. Hellraiser was released in 1987, and I was only 7 years old at the time. It was written and directed by Clive Barker. And the movie Hellraiser is actually based on his novel, The Hellbound Heart is what it's called. And this is the movie that sort of propelled him to horror movie status, because he's actually a pretty common name in the horror genre nowadays. He did a lot of different movies. He did Hellraiser, and his next biggest one was Candyman, if you remember that one. I definitely saw this movie when I was way too young, and it absolutely scared the daylights out of me. Most of the horror movies I watched when I was younger were silly ones. One of my favorites is actually, my favorite horror movies of all time, if it even is a horror movie, is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Because I secretly watched it whenever it came on TV. Whenever my mom was watching it in the living room, I'd lay down in the hall and watch it from a distance secretly. And it's definitely got a place in my heart. And Hellraiser was the same thing. I secretly watched it one day, and I literally had nightmares for months. Pinhead owned my dreams. And it was one of the only movies when it came on again, I actually refused to watch it. I probably, after seeing it the first time that I saw it, I probably didn't watch it again for probably 10 years, 15 years maybe, because it just scarred me so much. Everything in it, especially the body effects, the practical effects and everything were so well done. They were so realistic. I was too young at the time to differentiate, a lot of realism for, movie props and stuff like that. And oh my gosh, I'm telling you. Now, Hellraiser starts out with a man named Frank Cotton, and he buys what appears to be an ancient sort of gold-plated puzzle box from an Oriental merchant, which is one of the two accessories in this set by NECA. The box is a complete square when it's closed, but it's a puzzle box. You're meant to open it up. And when it's in sort of like a star-like pattern, that's when it's sort of fully open. And it actually goes by another name too. It's not said in the movie at all, but it's actually called the Lament Configuration. That is, it's an interesting name, but that is the name of the puzzle box. So Frank buys the puzzle box, and he opens the puzzle box in some sort of ritual in a room in his house. And as soon as he opens that box, the gore immediately starts when giant fish hooks impale him, piercing his body, and then he's completely ripped apart. And then that is when Pinhead makes his first appearance. Pinhead, played by actor Doug Bradley, is the leader of the Cenobites, And it's never quite explained in the first movie who they are. But they seem to be beings that come from a dimension of pure pain. And not just pain inflicted on other people, but pain, to themselves. It's sort of a sadomasochistic sort of thing. Like, pain is pleasure. That's what some people are into. And that's what the Cenobites, that's their MO. That's what they're about. And that obviously explains the appearance or how the Cenobites look. And obviously Pinhead with the pins through his head. Maybe he nailed those in himself, maybe that's a self-inflicted wound right there. So then Pinhead picks up the puzzle box and closes it, and then it's back to the normal world. Flash. Everything's gone back to, normal mundane world. Because the puzzle box appeared to be like a portal to the other dimension, or a bridge of some sort. Which could be hell or just another dimension of pain. There's different interpretations of it. But Pinhead definitely had an amazing presence in his first appearance. It's etched into my mind forever. And he's the main antagonist of it. And if I were to personally do sort of a Mount Rushmore of horror icons, Pinhead would 100% be on that mountain. So now that we know who Pinhead is, let's go over the figure a little bit. So it's a typical NECA presentation with a windowed box here. Hellraiser, Ultimate Pinhead. He'll tear your soul apart. Demon to some, angel to others. And it's got that awesome old school like horror, movie poster art on the front. That looks so cool with the box, the lament configuration. And while we're talking about it, Pinhead is an interesting name. They actually don't say his name in the movie whatsoever. So I don't know if Pinhead was actually sort of the original name of the character, or if it was just like a fan name or something that just took eventually. I don't know that. And then you open it up. Obviously, you got the windowed packaging right here. Let's try not to get me in the camera. So there's the figure right there. Pinhead. He's got an alternate head. He's got all the different accessories in there. On the side, you got the full body shot, which is very indicative of his first appearance in the movie. The sides are just the movie name. And then on the back, you have more of the pictures. And he's such an iconic design for, like you can look at him and you know exactly what he's about. Pain. And here he is, Ultimate Pinhead, out of the box. And the number one thing that I probably look at with these horror figures, especially if they're based on, if they look like actors, like, obviously, Jason is a different story because he's got the hockey mask on. But anyways, Pinhead was played by Doug Bradley. And so what I would look at with this figure, first of all, is see if the likeness is good. And I think the likeness is pretty spot on. That's definitely almost exactly what he looked like in the movie for sure. This is obviously his sort of resting head. He does come with an alternate head where he's got this is the look that I remember. This is the look that's ingrained sort of in my mind when he's talking, and you can see, his pitch black eyes. Oh my gosh, that looks so good. All the pins on the head, all the sculpt work that went into this. I don't know what went into making this head, but these heads are pretty amazing. Now this head straight out of the box had a couple bent nails. Some of them are still bent, but some of them I did bend back. They're not a super hard plastic, and they didn't break off when I bent them back, but there's still a couple more that I have to bend. But right out of the box, a couple of those were bent, but don't think it's the end of the world. But the things NECA really excels at are just amazing on this figure thus far, meaning the sculpt work, all the intricacies on his costume. And this is obviously definitely straight from the movie. Like, this is what it exactly looked like in the movie, and there's even more here, because in the first Hellraiser movie, they actually didn't show a lot of Pinhead, as we're seeing, as, we review the movie together. They didn't show a lot of him. Like, basically, this is all they showed, so you didn't really see his back very much, and I remember he does have this sort of flap right here, and even under this robe is pretty darn cool. It does have a wire around the edge. And I'm going to call it a robe. Obviously, it looks a little like a dress, but the robe. But like the legs, obviously you do not see his legs in the first movie. You do not see his legs whatsoever. But, trying to get that up. Look at the sculpting details on these legs. They obviously must have had, some behind the scenes material to go on to see, what his legs looked like. But oh my gosh, the sculpting details, like the detail and the texture of everything is sort of like that organic. It's got that organic sort of, shiny, like horror-ish, creepy-ish sort of texture to everything. And it works so well. Like, I'm pretty impressed by the sculpt work here. And I've seen a lot of NECA stuff, okay? This is impressive. So going back to the torso, obviously there's a lot of paint details here too. It's that silver with a dark wash on it. The arms have that same sort of texture as the legs have. And surprisingly enough, he actually has double elbows. Like, so he gets a pretty good reach up there. And the hands move really good too. The hands are really, really nice. Because those are things you don't really expect from the horror figures. Because these are made to look like the movie. They're not made to be highly posable. Like, he does have only single knees. And, the foot articulation's not that great either. There's not a super, good, big range of movement from the foot either. But that's not the purpose of these. And that's why these reviews are going to be kind of surface level. Hey, does this look like the movie? What's this from? Let's look at the details and everything like that, rather than, hey, let's see what kind of cool poses we can get. That's not the point of these horror figures. And I really do feel that this figure really, really, really captures the spirit, the likeness, the creepiness. Everything about Pinhead is definitely captured so well here. Especially, it starts with the face. If the face was off, then the rest of the figure doesn't even matter, because the face is, Pinhead's iconic. There's some nails bent on this head too. I'll have to straighten those out. But this is iconic, right? This is iconic. Pinhead's head with the pins. Like, obviously, his name is Pinhead. So the pins on his head are the focal point. And they're done so good. They look so good. The sculpt work, the paint job. Oh man, there's no paint blotches or anything on here. I don't know how they constructed the head. It's obviously multiple pieces, because I do see a crease right there. But that is the way Pinhead looked. He did have lines sort of on his head going to, the points of the nails. Some other cool design details on him too is he does have this string right here, which goes through, this cut on his stomach, which is, it is from the movie. Like, it is a loose piece. It starts out with a wire, like this starting point of the string, if you can see it, is actually a wire. And then it's a loose string that actually goes into there, because it's actually one piece. You can pull, like, if one side's too long, you could actually pull it through the other side. Oh, that's a pretty cool touch right there, I must say. And the sculpt work on his midsection matches the rest of it. It's got that sort of, it's got the shine to it, the sheen to it, like the, sort of, organic, messy, muddy texture and sheen to it that the rest of the figure has. You can see one of the wires right here for his cloak is popping out of that end. So just pop it back in there, because like I said, this is wired, right? So it's got a wire all the way down here and all the way around. So if there's any sort of, wistful poses you want to get with his cloak, obviously you can get them. And again, I love wires and capes and cloaks and stuff like that, and it looks really, really good. It does have a sort of, it's got that sheen, it's got that shine on it too, like that sort of wet look too, that the rest of the body has. So it definitely matches the rest of the design notes on the rest of it. And man, oh man, if this doesn't look just like him popping into that room talking to Christy, like, I don't know what does. NECA did. The sculpt work on this figure is amazing. 10 out of 10. Pinhead as a character, 10 out of 10. So, I mean, I would say I'm pretty happy with this. And the neck actually has an interesting joint in there. It's just a peg. It's not a real joint. And I think maybe that's because they don't want... Some of the NECA heads are hard to get on and off. And I think if this was hard to get it on and off, you'd bend the nails every time. So maybe that's why they did it like that. So let's see if we can get it in there without bending all the nails. So that's his other look. This is what I'm going to keep on him for sure. Those black eyes are from my nightmares when I was a kid. Like 100%. And of course he comes with a puzzle box, the Lament configuration. Obviously this is from the very first scene of the movie. It does follow, all the movies, even, past this Hellraiser 1. The puzzle box is still in them and still doing its thing. The details on it, I don't know if you could pick this up in 4K, but the tiny, tiny carvings on the puzzle box are all there. And I don't even know how you do this. This is so good if you look at every side. And I don't know, I'm filming this in 4K, so I hope you can pick up some of it. But the details are so good. And that's it in its sort of, resting state, as you will. And it also comes with another one. And this obviously is it when it's opened up. So, it's opened up. It's become, the portal to between worlds. But the details on it are just as good as the other puzzle box. And, all the designs really line up to where it would be if it was opened. Like, this is amazing. All right, and he also comes with 3 weapons. And while he doesn't use these in the movie, these are all from the rotating pillar that's in a couple scenes in the movie. You can identify these all were on that rotating pillar. And honestly, I don't know how you get this detailed on such a small accessory. Like, these are tiny, tiny accessories, and they have that metallic, like real metal look to it. It has a dark wash on it. Plus, it has blood on it. Blood all over the blade of these. And they have a real metal, like, hook at the end. Same thing with this, like a hacksaw sort of thing. It's got, the paint details on it. It's got blood and stuff on it. And even this tiny little knife. This tiny little knife is barely thicker than, I don't know, my fingernail. And it's got that wash on it too, and the bloody blade on it too, with the real metal ends. The attention to detail from NECA products is so amazing. And these are obviously deep dives, because these were just on the pillar. These didn't really have, a role in the Hellraiser movie, the first one at least. But the details on them, is beautiful. And he does come with multiple hands, obviously, so they're all front and back moving hands. And I love how they did the fingertips. The fingertips are all sort of a little stained red. Like, he's been doing something. Like, he's got blood on his fingernails and everything. And it looks so good. And it's got, if you look at his hands in the movie, he had a little cover over his pinky and his thumb on each of his hands. So obviously they kept that detail intact. And I don't know, they're multiple hands. They look great. And they're obviously made to hold the various, items, the various weapons that he comes with. And speaking of Pinhead, he's actually not in a lot of the movie, and neither are the Cenobites, honestly. But I do think that's honestly one of the movie's strengths, as, the Cenobites are sort of very mysterious. It doesn't reveal too much about them. And the horror buildup in the movie is very, very slow, but it really, really builds up over the course of the movie. Because the movie mainly follows Frank's brother, Larry. So Frank's the guy that got torn apart, and the movie follows Larry, who was married and moved into the house he used the puzzle box in and disappeared. So his wife, Julia, actually had an affair with Frank at some point, and sort of, fell madly in love with him, I guess. Said she promised she would do anything for him. Anything. So throughout the course of moving in, her husband gets hurt, and he spills blood on the floor, the same floor that Frank disappeared on, and it sort of resurrects him a little bit. Like he starts to form his body again, and the whole scene where his body's coming back together and stuff. Oh man, it's so disgustingly cool looking. Like the effects and everything. Like the effects and everything were so realistic to me back in the day. It was horrifying. And then as Frank gets sort of resurrected and he can talk, he's not whole still. He's still bits and pieces, a shadow of his former self. So he has to get Julia to kill people to give him more blood, which reforms his body. He's clearly scared too, and makes a comment that the Cenobites know he came back and are after him. He even has the puzzle box still with him, which he shows to Julia and warns her of sort of, its power. And then Julia, please Frank, tricks men into coming up to the room with her and kills them. So obviously, he can get the blood and he comes back little by little. And I mean, honestly, it's an amazing slow transformation effect to see Frank in the various forms of, decomposition, but, recompositioning into, a normal body. And then the plan breaks down a little bit when Christy, which is Larry's daughter, catches Julia bringing a man home with her and follows her in where she sees what's going on and has a confrontation with Frank. She picks up the puzzle box, but then notices that he really wants it. So what she does is she throws it out the window and she sort of escapes with it. So she runs out of the house, she grabs the puzzle box and runs sort of down the road. But the trauma of the scene makes her faint and she wakes up in the hospital. And when she's in the hospital, she thinks it's all a dream, because honestly, the nurses and stuff and the doctor in the hospital are kind of weird. And the doctor actually hands her the puzzle box. And she's sort of in like a dreamlike state at this point. And she actually, has the puzzle box on her lap and actually solves it and opens up the portal again. And then Pinhead and the Cenobites show up to take her back to their dimension and, have fun in their weird way of fun, horrific way. And he explains that the lament configuration isn't just a portal, but it summons the Cenobites, and they have to take her back with them to feel pain for all eternity. But to get out of it, she tells them about Frank escaping, and she makes a deal with Pinhead. Bring them Frank in exchange for her. And that's when he gives one of the best lines of the movie.
We'll tear your soul apart.
She gets home to talk to her dad, but it's too late. Larry's dead, and Frank is whole again and is taken over Larry's skin. And then just all hell breaks loose. Frank kills Julia, and then eventually she brings him to the room where the Cenobites and Pinhead are waiting for Frank. So they string him up again, they got him back under their control. But at this point, we learn that, Pinhead and the Cenobites do not honor their word, because they did come after Christy and wanted to take her back too. But then Christy finds the puzzle box again. It's actually in Julia's dead hands. And then she actually reverses the puzzle box to close it. And as she's reversing it, the Cenobites sort of get sent back to their dimension one at a time, back to where you came from, as she reverses it. And then they're gone. But remember, never trust Pinhead, okay? And in the final scene, she actually throws the puzzle box into a fire to destroy it. And this weird, sort of homeless man that's been, making appearances throughout the movie, grabs it, catches on fire, turns into this weird flying demon skeleton thing and flies away. And then cut back to the old Oriental merchant again, with another man sitting in front of him, and on the table the puzzle box is back. And of course, the last line, "Hee, what's your pleasure?" Alright, so ultimate thoughts on Hellraiser, the movie, are that it was pretty groundbreaking when it first came out. I had never seen quite anything in that gory detail before, and I definitely like it. It's got a place in my heart. It's definitely the best one of the series, the first one. But I did like part 2. Part 2 had a bunch of different Cenobites in it. But if you've never seen it, I would definitely recommend it. As long as you don't have a weak stomach. Because it is pretty gory, but it's one of those slow build horror movies that's not complete gore, that's unnecessary. The gore is necessary to help you understand, what the Cenobites are about, what Mr. Pinhead is about. And this figure by NECA is easily a 10 out of 10. It matches the movie perfectly. I think the likeness of Doug Bradley is amazing. I love the black eyes. The accessories he comes with, I think maybe he could have come with maybe bigger pieces like the actual pillar or something like that. Maybe some chains with some hooks. And then I hope someday maybe they release more of the Cenobites. But the figure is amazing, especially the sculpt work. The sculpt work is probably my favorite thing about it. Like, it's so intricate and detailed. It's I don't know, it's amazing. So happy Halloween, everybody. Stay safe. And I want to do a couple more of these before Halloween. So if you like this format, let me know. Let's chat below. Have you seen Hellraiser? Did you see it as a kid? Did it scar you for life? Let me know below. Let's chat. Peace out.